Credit to the Prime Minister and the National Cabinet on being able to steward us through these health challenges. And I suppose my view has always been, and I don't have any particular insights into the National Cabinet, but not being a member, obviously, as we stepped into restrictions, I suspect we'll be stepping out of restrictions in a staged way, not too dissimilar to what some of the jurisdictions around the country have already announced. So, I think that sort of staged approach would be sensible, but I can, assure you there are millions of people around Australia, you're right, who are really keen to see some level of normality back in our lives.
Yeah, retail and food services, we know from the statistics, have taken the biggest hit. If restrictions are lifted on these sectors in stage one, will that make a significant improvement early to our overall economic prospects?
Oh, well, look, there's no doubt that that makes a significant difference. As the Treasurer outlined in his National Press Club speech earlier this week, for every week of restrictions is a $4 billion cost. These are not cost-free decisions, these sorts of restrictions, and no doubt, some of the earliest and hardest hit areas of the economy were hospitality, as you say. So, look, there's no doubt that would have a significant impact on the upside and would be one of the benefits of Australia really being ahead of the world in getting on top of the health issues.
Well, you're coming to us live from Fortress Victoria this morning. Are you concerned that economic recovery in your state might be a little bit slower than the rest of us?
Well, I think the point to make is nothing is cost-free, Laura. And, everybody here, from the Prime Minister to the Premiers to the Chief Ministers, are balancing difficult judgments. I accept that. I think we all accept that, and we've given all of those leaders, that sense of support. But, as the Treasurer again outlined on earlier this week, these are not cost-free decisions. So, if a state like Victoria was going to go down the path of deeper and harder restrictions for a longer period of time than comparable states, then, of course, there's a cost. There's a cost in jobs, there's a cost in prosperity, and what that does for people's lives. So I think it's about accepting that these are not cost-free decisions. Premiers, the Prime Minister, they're weighing difficult decisions, but it's clear that where there's an acceptable pathway forward to easing restrictions, we've got to remember that these are people's lives and livelihoods that are on the line, and we've got to continue to balance those. Yep. Harder and deeper restrictions for longer are not cost-free. They have a significant cost on people's economic welfare.
Well, yesterday we reported on another story that the ATO had been compromised. Are you looking at any cases of fraud here?
Well, what you're referring to, Laura, is not a compromise of the ATO. So it has been referred to the AFP, a case of identity theft, essentially, where bogus claims have been put through the early release of super scheme. I think it's worth noting, Laura, this has been an extraordinarily popular scheme.
So,
in some respects,
just to be clear,
sadly popular.
There's been no cyber breach of the ATO website, but what we have seen is multiple cases of identity theft. Can you tell us how many?
No, look, Laura, these matters are being investigated by the AFP. What we've had is 1.2 million people with applying for early release of superannuation, well over $10 billion. There's been one isolated incident where I think it's fair to say identity theft has been involved. That's being investigated by the AFP, but I emphasise these are not a compromise of ATO systems.
Yeah, of course.
These are flat-out fraud. So we're investigating those, and as part of that process for today only, so today the ATO will pause requests for early superannuation being sent to super funds just for today, so they'll resume on Monday because we want the ATO today, out of an abundance of caution, to make sure that there's nothing more we can do to help people protecting their data, to ensure that people are not the victims of identity theft, as is being investigated by the AFP. So today we will undertake that process. just to make sure there's nothing more that the ATO can do. But I think it's worthwhile noting, Laura, as was noted yesterday in the Senate committee, sadly, in the world we live in, the ATO and taxpayers information is under constant attack. It is literally under constant attack.
Of course.
Every day of the year. This program is no different. This is a very successful program. 1.2 million people, over $10 billion of early release of super. But out of an abundance of caution, we will undertake a further review just to make sure there's nothing more that the ATO can do to help taxpayers and to help Australians keep their identity, keep themselves, to the greatest extent possible, free from some of these fraudulent activities that always happen.